let's start first with, give the American people some idea on how bad it is because of this revolution that we supported with the Muslim Brotherhood.
Sure, Glenn. Basically, what's happened to Egypt since post-Arab Spring, as it was fondly called, has seen a nosedive in their human rights all throughout Egypt. Most recently, even before, of course, the Muslim Brotherhood takeover, churches were constantly being attacked, burned down. Coptic girls are frequently raped and abducted and forced to convert, and all sorts of different patterns
have
been happening in Egypt. But
wait, can you explain what it means when you say they're raped and forced to convert? Can you explain what that means in Egypt?
What that means is that because they're a vulnerable minority, the Christian Copts in Egypt, they're frequently targeted in different ways to, especially young girls, to somehow be brought into the fold of Islam. That could be done on different levels. It could be in the most basic rape. She's actually abducted, raped, and then shamed and told that if your family finds out, they'll disown you, and now you have to be a Muslim. Or she may even be impregnated, and of course the son of a Muslim or the child of a Muslim is a Muslim, and then she becomes part of this. Other times friends, Muslim friends, trick them into it, drug them, and then they're abducted and they wake up and they find themselves in a different setting and most recently one girl who's 12 years old was actually, this happened to her, and then they sent her to Libya because of course Libya post Arab Spring is another hotbed of Christian persecution. So really what's happened, it's taken a nosedive to the worse, and one of the best examples happened very recently, which was the attack on the Coptic Cathedral, the St. Mark Cathedral, which is really the holiest site of for all Coptic Christians. We're talking millions of people. In fact, for many Orthodox too, Eastern Orthodox like Ethiopians. And under Mubarak, at least this cathedral was respected. And, you know, as one activist I was watching on an Arabic program said, not even a pebble was ever thrown towards it. But recently, after Muslims went on a riot and killed Christians, again, it was based on the context of they were sexually harassing young Christian girls, and men, Coptic men, retaliated. There was a fight. Some died. Most of them who died were Christians. Then they tried to bury the Christians in the St. Mark Cathedral, or they had their funeral. And as they went out, the Copts in mass were, of course, angry. But then all of a sudden, large groups of Muslims started hurling rocks at them, Molotov cocktails. And basically, this holiest site of Coptic Orthodox Christianity was under siege. And what's worse, it wasn't just the mobs. You have pictures and videos of the mobs doing all this, in fact, with rifles, climbing atop the roof of adjacent buildings of the cathedral and opening fire on it. And then you have right next to them the Egyptian state security standing by. And you have videos of this, you have photos of it. And then, of course, the state security itself started hurling tear gas canisters, and it got maybe over 50, 60 Copts sick that had to be taken out. So things have tremendously taken a turn for the worse in Egypt with the Muslim Brotherhood,
okay.
The rise there. But
tell me why the media doesn't cover, because they're going to immediately say that we as a network are blowing things out of proportion, or taking just a few things. We send our people into danger, into Egypt to cover this story. Any of them would have been killed. Any of the people who were part of this interview could have been killed for talking to us. Tell me why this is not being covered by the media.
Certainly, because in my opinion, the phenomena of Christian persecution under Islam is the Achilles heel to both Islam's image in the West and to the mainstream liberal media's narrative. And what I mean by that is, the media has no problem covering angry Muslims shooting rockets into Israel, even if those Muslims articulate it through Islamic paradigms. They're screaming Allahu Akbar and things like that. The media has no problem showing the same patterns in, let's say, Europe, in France, Muslims rioting, burning cars, doing this and that. And the reason for that is because the media will immediately portray such Muslims as the underdogs, and Americans have a thing for underdogs. We side with underdogs, we sympathize. So if these underdogs are acting violent and wild and going crazy, well, that's of course because they're oppressed in Israel, that's because they're oppressed in Europe, that's because they're oppressed everywhere. Now, if you come to this issue of Christian persecution under Islam, these arguments no longer work. For now what you have is, now Muslims are the dominant ones, let's say in Egypt. Here they're the majority. Christians are an ostracized, politically ostracized group, which is very small, and they're the same race, same names, same language, same ethnicity. So there's absolutely nothing to distinguish an Egyptian Copt from an Egyptian Muslim. And yet they are under attack. Their churches are burned, their women are abducted, et cetera, et cetera. So the mainstream media narrative of Muslim grievance is what fuels Muslim violence, which works so well when you're talking about Israel. And the West simply doesn't work in this aspect, because now this is pure religious hostility. There's no way to justify it. It doesn't make sense. Why are they attacking an outnumbered minority?
Tell me what the conditions of Omar are.
The conditions of Omar, and I'm glad you asked about this. It's a arcane, little-known text, even by Arabists and Islamic scholars, which is attributed to the second caliph Omar of the 7th century, and under him were the greatest waves of jihads and Arab conquests of so many lands, including Egypt. And what they were is it was a pact that he made with conquered Christians in Syria. It may actually even be in Jerusalem. And it just lists the sorts of things that they, as Christians, as non-Muslims, must adhere to, conditions. And all of these conditions are, of course, from a modern humanitarian standpoint, a travesty. Basically, a Christian can't build a new church. They can't repair an old one. They can't sing too loudly during Mass. They can't display a cross or a Bible anywhere near a Muslim. If a Muslim wants their seat, the Christian has to rise up. Christians can't wear the same outfits. They have to wear clothes that makes them look humiliating and distinguishes them. And now why this is very important is because when you look at it and you look at what's happening to the Copts, and you look at what's happening to actually Christians from one end of the Muslim world to the other, from Morocco in the west to Indonesia in the east to sub-Saharan Africa to Turkey and Central Asia, you'll find that the conditions of Omar and all those stipulations are actually being expected of Christians and being pushed on them. And so churches are bombed. In Egypt, believe it or not, in Egypt there was a church there which already exists. They simply wanted a permit to repair the toilet. And of course, because the conditions of Omar say you can't repair a church because we're waiting for it to just die by itself, they didn't get a permit. They ended up fixing it, and next thing you know, state security came, destroyed the toilet, beat up the priest, and arrested them. And so these conditions are alive and well today. And further to that is, aside from what I said about what's Christians, what's really important about the book Crucified Again is it's really a microcosm of what happens to non-Muslims who live under Muslim authority. And so what I'm describing here, rest assured, this is what's in store for anyone who comes under this sort of authority.
Raymund, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your time. We'll speak again. It's important for you to know that tonight at 8 o'clock we're running For the Record, and this is only half the show. We're going to show you something else that's happening right here in our own country, and we'll get to that next. But it is important for you to call your pastor, your priest, and your rabbi, and that you watch as a Christian, because Christians are being persecuted now. And it is not just happening in Egypt. Let me give you just the countries: Egypt, Nigeria, Somalia, Sudan, Kenya, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Iran, Turkey, Libya, Central Asia. It's happening all over. And we can no longer turn a blind eye to the Muslim Brotherhood and the disease that it brings into all countries, that it infects. It has infected ours at the highest levels. You need to be aware. Tonight at 8 o'clock, For the Record.